Hey everybody, this is Bo Segrest with the Premise Podcast. I am the host, and this is our first ever bonus episode. Now, kind of the inception of the idea of the Premise Podcast, that we would have a new podcast every week. Each podcast would be like a beautiful snowflake, or like fingerprints at a crime scene. That each episode would be its own thing, so that we would never resort to that genre of podcast that's just two guys talking about whatever, and hoping that we can become interesting enough. I hope that we've exhibited some self-awareness with trying to come up with creative ideas and very silly things to do. But this is a bonus episode, so it doesn't it doesn't really count. It doesn't really count for that. And while it is really just a stripped down interview, this was kind of the leftovers from our interview with Jameson that became the Slumdog Millionaire Affair episode. So these are all the interview portions that didn't turn into a trivia question. And there's some good stuff in here. We just think Jameson is such a fantastic person, such an interesting person. Just a brilliant, beautiful man. I wanted to put this out there too. I think there's still some good stuff in here. I think it'll keep you entertained. But so that this doesn't become that podcast that we never wanted to become, which is in every great hero's story, they have to face that. Part of the hero's journey is facing the person you don't want to be, which is, for example, in The Empire Strikes Back, Luke Skywalker meets a ghost of Darth Vader in the tree. He goes in the tree and Darth Vader is there, and then he's not. That's what this is for us. So we're going to add some segments into this that we'll call micro podcasts. We'll have different premises kind of stitched in with this interview, standalone tiny podcasts. And I hope you'll enjoy those. These are just kind of ideas that aren't good enough to be done for 45 minutes to an hour. So I hope you enjoy this episode.
It's the Premise Podcast, where every single one is a different show. Premise Podcast, every single episode is out of control.
Jameson, have you ever, how do I put this? I'm trying to think of a traumatic and memorable experience, and this is why I asked the following question. Have you ever defecated yourself or peed in your pants in public?
No, not as an adult, I'd say. I'm sure as a child when I was unable to control. Yeah, I'm sure.
But you don't have any that you remember where you
no
went baba on your pants?
No release of bodily fluid.
Yeah, I always could control it until I got to a place where I could,
really
take care of business. Yeah, so far, I got a pretty good streak. I don't plan on breaking it, but you never know what life's gonna throw your way.
In 2008, I was seeing Quantum of Solace, the James Bond film, in theaters, and I was at the urinal, and I thought I had to fart, but I didn't.
Oh, no.
And I missed this whole second half of the movie because I was just freaking out in the bathroom. I didn't know it was so much poop in my pants.
How old are you? So you said 2008?
Yes, I was about 10.
Oh, yeah, you were like 10 years old. Oh, man.
Well, that was my 8th birthday. This is totally not about the podcast, but my 8th grade birthday, I think. I had a bunch of friends over. We were just doing something in my backyard. I don't know. Not 8th grade, when I was 8 years old. And my present was a Tim Duncan jersey. I lived in Texas. And right after I opened it, I put it on. And then while all of my friends were watching and singing happy birthday, I threw up on myself all over.
Jameson, what do you want to know about Steven that would make you feel comfortable here in this space?
I'm pretty comfortable already. I'm just,
That's great.
yeah.
No deep dark secrets or anything.
Yeah, no deep dark secrets on this
Okay.
end. I'm just.
Steven, he knows a lot about birds. Steven does.
I don't know if I'd say a lot, but probably more than the average person.
Yeah, I think you know a lot about birds.
What's the coolest bird fact
What's
that
the
you know?
coolest bird? Oh, I don't know many bird facts. I just know the different birds.
Oh, so you know, like,
what's the
you know
coolest
types
bird?
of birds.
What's the coolest bird? Well, there's this theory that the ivory-billed woodpecker is not extinct. It's this huge-ass woodpecker. Was the biggest woodpecker in the world. And there's been some sightings recently in like southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana. Yeah,
Wow.
It's pretty cool. It's a pretty bird.
Would you like to catch one of those one day?
Yeah, in the net. I'm gonna eat it.
My goodness.
Would you eat the last one? Like,
No,
if you were
no.
pretty sure they were going to go extinct regardless, would you eat the last one?
I probably wouldn't eat it if I didn't think they were gonna go extinct. I doubt it tastes very good.
Yeah, the ivory probably isn't very chewy.
Yeah, the bill.
Oh my
It's weird because it's my favorite part of chicken.
Steven, he's in Atlanta. He goes to Georgia Tech. He's not in
Oh, wow.
Atlanta.
Well,
right now.
I'm not currently there, but yeah, I do live there.
So.
Yeah, I went to Morehouse, so I'm right down the street.
Bill told me about that.
Jameson, please save it for the interview.
Yeah, he is.
You recording?
Yeah.
I thought this was an interview.
I just don't want to do a lot of editing. We're gonna pause in between these segments of our interview with Jameson to give you failed premise podcast premises. These are podcasts that we tried to do that did not pan out, that were not that good for whatever reason. Most of them we don't really know why they didn't work, why the fans didn't like them. But this first one is the I'd Like to Be Friends with Them podcast, where we talk about someone we'd like to be friends with. Seems like a great idea, right? Here's a little segment from one episode.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, for starters, he's the reason that the Canadian flag has a maple leaf on it. He introduced universal health care in the country. He kept Canada out of the Vietnam War. He got rid of capital punishment in Canada. Great guy. I'd want to meet Lester Pearson.
What would you do with him? How'd you guys hang out?
I think we'd have a mean picnic. We would sit out in the sun and maybe slice up some chorizo. I think that'd be lovely.
Better watch out for ants.
Yeah, they don't have those in Canada though. So
the person I'd like to meet is no longer with us, and also isn't technically a person. The Moose is his name. His name is Moose. He is the dog who played Eddie on Frasier. He also had a few other pretty big roles. He was a pretty big movie star in his time. He passed a few years ago, but I'd love to meet Moose. I'd love to, take him out for a walk in the park. Throw him a frisbee. I'd let him sit on my couch and be like, don't you see that, Moose, that you never got to do that in the show Frasier, and now here you are in my couch hanging out with me, and it's kind of like you're my dog.
Yeah. What would you do if you had one day with Moose?
I would. It depends on if we're talking before he was spayed or after. I'd have different answers. Before.
Okay, I don't think boy dogs are spayed.
I thought they were spayed. I thought girls were neutered, boys are spayed.
No, boys are neutered.
Well, I would take him to get neutered. If we hung out before he was neutered, I would take him to get neutered, because I think that's a very important thing. I think we should neuter and spay our dogs.
Yeah. I'm just realizing my parents were big fans of Frasier, and they got a Jack Russell Terrier in like the year like 92 or 93, I think. When did Frasier
Really?
start?
Around then. Just one of the many podcasts that never was and will remain a micro podcast until the end of time. That was the person I'd like to hang out with them podcast. And now we'll come back with more of these micro podcasts that were failed premises. Until then, here's more Jameson.
But people say, Ted Bundy was an attractive guy. And
so are you insinuating that these friends of yours, whose names you said on our podcast, could be serial murderers?
No, I'm not even insinuating. I'm just saying that, look.
You're saying they are.
No. I'm saying you can't really determine much off looks.
Oh, okay.
Looks can be deceiving.
Do you have any monumental life experiences with a certain song?
Yeah, there's a bunch of wonder songs that come to mind. I mean,
do you associate like specific songs with memory?
Yeah,
sometimes, yeah.
No?
Ooh, dang. Like song I associate. Funny enough, every time I hear cough syrup, I associate that with senior of high school when Bo and I and Sam Hudson and a few of our other friends, we played at this school concert.
I think Bo told me about that.
Yeah, I love this story.
That's the Young the Giant song?
Yeah.
Nice.
Do you remember? Yeah, go ahead.
That was it. We did a bunch of pop songs. We all had flannels on, and we all were playing guitars, basically.
Yeah, there was 4 guitars?
I think. Let's see. It was three guitars, a bass guitar, and drums.
I think our band name was 22 Strings plus Drums or something like that.
Something along those lines. It was very funny looking back. It was fun.
It was like a music festival thing that our high school was doing to raise money for cancer research. I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think we were all pretty aware of it.
And then those G-string broke.
Yeah, during Matchbox 20's How Far We've Come. I was going so hard on that song. Do you remember, Jameson? Your parents were there, and the way I introduced us was I got up there, and I was like, I was just going to introduce you to the band. We got Jameson Floyd, he's on lead electric. Wesley, he's on the bass. Eduardo, he's playing rhythm electric. My name is Bo Segrist. My parents are divorced. And Sam Hudson's on the drums, and his parents are also divorced. And Jameson, your parents looked at Wes, and they were like, what the hell? They got mad at Wes. So you know, like, all the steps and everything. Like, what's step 1?
Of the Heimlich?
Yeah.
Well, you don't go straight to the Heimlich. You try to get them to cough if they can, talk. Because there's a difference between choking and having something lodged in your throat. Because choking is when it's in your trachea, in your windpipe, which is cutting off oxygen, Yeah. So if they can cough and if they can breathe, then you're in a better place to start. But if they're choking and they can't, and they give you the choking signal, around their neck, then that's when you start thinking, okay, I need to do something. Some people try to pat on the back first, which I never really understood because it doesn't really work. At least not for grown adults. Maybe for
babies that helps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but so you ball up. You're stronger. Like if you're right-handed, like your right hand, left hand if you're left-handed. You ball it up and you cover up your thumb because you don't want to have it point into them too much because it could potentially hurt them more than do any good. And you just basically you don't go straight in, you go upwards. If you can imagine, it's kind of like
by the diaphragm.
Yeah, closer. Yeah, kind of right under the rib cage as best you can, because you want to create force that pushes things out and up.
Oh, okay. Because I would think go in. I guess I would think go in and up. But yeah, that makes sense. The Heimlich is one of those things where I know of the Heimlich, but I don't know the Heimlich. Do you understand?
Yeah, for sure. Because you've seen it, right? It's just like, okay, you kind of just.
Though, if you were in a situation where somebody was choking and there was you and one other person in the room, and the other person just isn't doing anything, and they're like looking at you like do something, would you attempt it?
I think I would attempt it. I wouldn't feel great about it, but I think I'd do it.
Yeah.
And I deal with the repercussions later.
For sure.
There's an episode, Jameson. Have you ever watched Curb Your Enthusiasm?
I know you're a huge fan. But...
Yeah, this won't go on the podcast, but there's an episode where his assistant starts choking, and he's worried about getting a sexual harassment suit if he touches her boobs, and so he just doesn't do the Heimlich.
That's funny because, I learned also in Boy Scouts, when you do CPR, like when they're trying to like resuscitate them, if it's a woman, that like when I was taught by a doctor, he said, whoever it is, man, woman, or otherwise, you need to like not take off, but like remove any barriers to like their chest, like the skin on their chest. So if it's like a coat or something heavy, you want to take that off. And he said even like shirts, and he said even women, and I was like, wow, this is me probably like 10 years old, maybe 6th grade, because 6th grade was like the year like my life changed. But yeah, so I remember thinking like, I feel like that's kind of weird, but I guess I wouldn't be worried about the harassment claim at that point. I just want to make sure.
And a doctor told you that.
Yeah, that's true.
Gotcha.
Still practicing?
I'm sure. I have very little doubt he's still practicing.
Our next micro podcast is a show that had good potential, but just failed immediately due to a very poor choice in name. Here's a clip. Welcome back to the Bookburners Podcast. And before we start today, I feel like we should address, we've gotten some fan mail. Maybe they're not fans. We're not burning the books. We're not setting them aflame. We're burning them. Don't you? We're burning books. Like that Catcher in the Rye. Like more like Catcher in the Cry. Am I right? Like burns.
I mean, we learned our lesson from our previous podcast.
But people have been confused by the title of our podcast, which we are not changing. This is the Bookburners Podcast, but we are not book burners. We burn books. Right? I don't know how to make this more clear.
Yeah.
Let's get to the book burning for today. Steven, do you want to go first? What's your book for the week? Let's burn that sucker.
Yeah, my book for the week is a Cormac McCarthy book, The Road. Post-apocalyptic survival. There's a movie adaptation of it.
Nick Cage is in it, isn't he?
Viggo Mortensen. The movie's actually pretty good, but the book, let me tell you. So here's the thing. The kid, I don't know what his name is. I forgot. He was a total pansy. He is just constantly worried about being one of the good guys or carrying this light of, I don't know, hope. And I just, there's fucking monsters in this place, and that's just not going to cut it. The kid totally would have died a weekend. The book just doesn't make any sense. And
what a stupid book.
Yeah.
The Road? More like the load of crap.
Load of crap.
That's right. That's a book burn, baby.
Yeah.
Any other burns for this book?
No.
It doesn't even deserve more burns. That's how bad we want to burn it. And again, we're not using this is a verbal burning. My book burn of the week is I'm gonna burn The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane. I read this book, and man, it sucked. This book sucked. Burning it is too good for this book, and again, I mean burning it verbally. I don't encourage our listeners to burn this book. But Red Badge of Courage, it's all about this guy. He's a phony. He's a soldier. But what is that? What is that good for? Oh, here's a burn. Um, uh, War? What the hell is this book good for? Huh, absolutely nothing. Steven. And this is not to mention the worst, the easiest way for me to want to burn a book verbally is when the book uses the title of the book, just like tosses it in there as if I'm not going to notice this. And it's talking about this whole time he wants a wound. And it's like, I get it. Red Badge of Courage. Blood is red. I get that. I understand that. And then on page like 70, it goes, all he wanted was a wound, a red badge of courage. It's like, obviously, you spent 70 pages explaining that he wants to get shot in the arm, and now you gotta explain your metaphor to me? The main character's name is Henry Fleming, more like Henry Flaming, because this book just got burned, metaphorically.
Oof. I will say, if there's anything positive to say about The Road, it's that there's never any conversation between boy and man when boy says, "Dad, where are we going?" and Dad responds, "The road."
Oh, they don't say that.
No, they never mention the road.
How is the dialogue in that book?
I'm just remembering now. There's no names for the characters except for some old man.
Who doesn't have a name? Names for authors are the easiest part to come up with. That is the least. It takes the least amount of energy when writing a book to come up with a name. Just think, what is a name? Jim. There. That's it. That's all you have to do. You want to hear another name? Michelson. Easy. You want to hear another name? Henrietta, Harriet, Gladys. These are all easy names to insert into your book.
Helen, maybe.
That was a very good podcast with a not so good name. We should have workshopped that a little bit more. In the meantime, before we get to our last micro podcast, here's some more Jameson for you. Okay, so you went to Morehouse. Do you have anything to share about your Morehouse experience? Anything you learned along the way?
Yeah, I think there's like so much I learned from Morehouse and just college in general. I'm sure like a lot of the common adages and kind of things you learn in college, I learned at Morehouse. But I guess like Morehouse specific, I guess it's imperative, not to get too like deep, just imperative to like find good people that you can rely on and really lean on and be able to also be a resource to other people, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because nothing in life is ever done alone. Like we literally didn't come into this world on our own, you know? Like that was someone else's doing. So it's just in life, like being together and being just conscious and aware and cognizant of other people and trying our best to consider others, you know, like that's a lesson I think I was really cemented in college, and hopefully I continue to learn, you know.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Is there anything you learned at Morehouse that you definitely wouldn't have learned anywhere else? And I can make the question more specific if you want.
Yeah, do that. Let's see what you got.
Has there ever been a time where you learned something at Morehouse and you said, that would make a good trivia question?
Have I learned something at Morehouse that would make a good trivia question? Yeah, actually. So I gave tours at Morehouse. I was like a student ambassador. So with that, you just learn a lot of random facts about the school. Not random facts, but facts. And what I didn't know was that the three schools that are kind of in the same area right there in Atlanta, Morehouse, Spelman, and Clark Atlanta. So they all came to that area within a few years of each other. And the land that the schools are on, like currently, actually belongs to the Rockefellers.
Wow.
So it was about, I think it's 62 or like 66 acres roughly of land. And, it, originally belonged to the Rockefellers, and they gave it for the purpose of these schools to be built and grow and, flourish and be educational like hubs and for Black people. So it's pretty phenomenal. Yeah, and that, like, I would have never.
So you know that because of your life experiences, is what you're saying.
Yeah, precisely. Because of my experience as a tour guide.
This next micro podcast was a failed premise. And the whole idea was we recognized there were these two crazes in podcasting, which is true crime murder. People really get into this murder, right? We figured, what's the other craze in podcasting? That's ASMR. And this was a failed attempt to combine the two into one. A true crime murder ASMR podcast. We thought that this couldn't fail. It did. All right, everybody. It's time for another round of ASMR murder true crime.
ASMR murder crime.
So grab a glass of wine and be ready to have your ears tickled with the sweet sounds of true murder.
Murder.
Richard Chase was just a young boy in Sacramento, California, when doctors said that he was a psychopath. When he moved out of his parents' house, he moved into an apartment with friends. Tell us what he did, Stevan.
He began capturing, killing, and dismembering animals and consuming them raw. He would mix the organs of rabbits, of squirrels, with Coca-Cola in a blender. Possums to make a possum smoothie.
They put him in a psychiatric ward in 1973.
Psych ward.
He started being called by the staff Dracula because he loved to drink the blood of animals he'd kill.
The vampire of Sacramento's first murder was in 1977. He killed Ambrose Griffin, a 51-year-old engineer and father of 2 kids, in a drive-by shooting. He later, 2 weeks later in fact, attempted to enter a woman's home. But when the doors I haven't even read. What does it say?
Sorry, I read ahead. Oh, it's so gross.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
We can't
I
say
don't even
all
want to
this.
read this. I don't even
Here.
want to read.
We let's just say he liked his lovin' cold. So cold. He didn't just kill his victims. That's right. He liked to drink his victim's blood and do more than that after he would kill them.
Safe to say, he was not a fan of foreplay.
I'm sorry, it's so gross. He would have his way with the corpse and then eat it. Oh boy. We can just skip all the details and head to the trial. Steven, tell us what it all amounted to.
Chase was tried on 6 counts of murder.
Ooh, murder.
The 6 counts, which would be of second-degree murder, would have resulted in a life sentence. But his defense team needed to argue for insanity.
He's crazy. The other inmates were scared of him and tried to talk him into ending it all. One reporter got an interview with Chase, and just like any of us, he revealed that he's afraid of Nazis and UFOs. He thought the Nazis and the UFOs were in cahoots to kill him.
His insanity led him to believe that the prison officials and the guards were working with these Nazi UFOs and trying to kill him with poisoned food. And because of this, he hoarded macaroni and cheese in his pockets.
He was found dead in his cell in 1980. And that was the end of the Dracula Cannibal of Sacramento. Feel free to subscribe to this podcast if you love the sweet sounds of murder in your ears.
Murder, Sacramento.
Murder, Sacramento. It's a real shame that that podcast didn't work out. We could have done a lot of murders with that thing. Here's the last little bit of the interview with Jameson. Thanks for doing this, Jameson. Are there any political views you have that you want to put on the podcast?
No, I'm good.
Well, Steven and I can do some hot takes and put those in.
Yeah.
I would love to find a way to really spoof Ben Shapiro, or just find a funny way to.
Wait, that's who we should have picked as our podcast archenemy.
I don't want to.
Apparently, he has a podcast.
He has a podcast. The problem with arguing with him is, in his mind, he's never lost an argument.
Yeah.
And we could be taking it not seriously at all, and people would just trash us. Really, the problem would be he'd call me a bad Jew, and I'd have nothing to say.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I am. But I don't want him to tell me that.
But not for the reasons he thinks.
Yeah, not for the reasons he thinks.
So, I guess you can cut all this out, but when you guys make your podcast topics, how do you ensure the flow kind of goes? Because you listen to podcasts from comedians.
We hope. We pray, Jameson. We hope for the best.
That's okay. Because I'm as I'm talking to you guys, I'm this is kind of hard, to build a conversation, because you kind of have to have a conversation before the conversation that you record to make sure that everything goes smooth. But at the same time,
you're the first guest we've had where we've told you what's going on beforehand. So